Welcome to a new season of CBC Arts Exhibitionists, the only show on television that takes you on a cross-country art tour in 30 minutes. I'm your host, Amanda Paris. We're kicking off Season 5 by witnessing history in the making. Right now, I'm at the National Arts Centre, just down the street from Parliament Hill, and I'm about to visit the newly created Indigenous Theatre. Some of the biggest names are coming from all over the country to kick off the launch. Jeremy Dutcher, Buffy Sainte-Marie, Rebecca Belmore. So we thought we would also celebrate this pivotal moment by dedicating this entire episode to Indigenous performing arts. Today, you'll head up to Iqaluit to meet an artist using her body to pull stereotypes apart. You'll see the new artistic director of NAC Indigenous Theatre creating in his hometown. And you'll hear some words of wisdom from the legendary Buffy Sainte-Marie.
When everybody else was playing Barbie dolls and sports, I was playing art.
For their first ever season, the National Arts Centre's Indigenous Theatre has decided to center the voices and stories of Indigenous women by having 9 out of their 11 productions written and created by women. We're about to get a sneak peek at the first production being mounted by the NAC's Indigenous Theatre. It's a play called The Unnatural and Accidental Women by Métis Dene playwright Marie Clements. We're about to meet the team bringing the story to the stage.
The play itself is based around missing and murdered Indigenous women, and specifically something that happened in Vancouver where there was someone who was known as the barbershop murderer, and he would target Indigenous women specifically, but also there were other women of settler descent.
Gilbert Paul Jordan. 7 times he was found in rooms with dead women, dead from alcohol poisoning. It was alleged he'd pick them up in Vancouver hotel bars and ply them with liquor till they died.
Play was actually opened in Vancouver, and he was still on the prowl for a full year after that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and so this play at the time apparently garnered a lot of attention in getting him noticed, and so he ended up being caught again by the police for targeting women.
This is the first production being staged by the Indigenous Theatre at the NAC. How does that feel for this to be the first one?
You realize how important this work is. That when Marie wrote this play, it was way before anybody was really talking about it.
Are you all right, Mom? Mom, are you all right, Mom? Mom, where's Mom?
This play premiered at the Fire Hall Arts Centre when I was in theatre school, and I didn't get a chance to see it, and it's something that I've always missed. And so to be able to see it fully realized on our main stage here at the NAC is a dream come true.
What has the rehearsal hall been like with this particular group of women?
Well, you know, we all come in happy. And we do the warm-ups, and we start thinking about like how we want to get to this scene or that scene. And we're fairly okay. And then one day, I think it was the end of the first week, we realized that these women are being killed. And the whole cast burst out crying. We had to bring out the smudge and, you know, bring out tobacco and really talk, because all of a sudden it hit them that this is really happening. This happened.
It's not just a story.
No, it's not just a story.
To the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls of Canada, to their families and to survivors, we have failed you. We will fail you no longer.
There's a quote that I want to read that you've said once about Indigenous performing arts. You said, "Our stories are medicine."
Yes.
So with that in mind, what's your hope for Indigenous theatre at the NAC?
My hope...
Or your many hopes.
My many hopes? I have a lot of hopes. When we celebrate and we dance, that's medicine. When we weep, that's medicine. And I think that from the Indigenous perspective, these stories that we're bringing forward are meant to sort of change the world incrementally or even profoundly. And I think that that's what we bring to the table.
I really want people to see this play. And so it becomes something more than that, oh, you know, those poor women, tisk, tisk.
There is a privilege in being artists and being able to speak where the people who have been directly impacted by this actual story didn't have those words.
Kevin Loring, who we just met, recently arrived in Ottawa for his new position as Artistic Director of the Indigenous Theatre here at the National Arts Centre. But before he got here, we spent some time with him in his hometown of Lytton, BC, where he was supposed to be on vacation. But as you'll see, he ended up doing what he does best, connecting communities through the art of storytelling. Take a look.
I didn't really know what I was doing. I'd never done a community project of this scope or scale. But when I come home, I'm in the mountains, I'm in this air. I feel like my batteries are recharging. I'm Kevin Loring. I'm the Artistic Director of Savage Society, a not-for-profit theatre company dedicated to telling Indigenous stories. And I'm also the Artistic Director of Indigenous Theatre at the National Arts Centre of Canada in Ottawa.
In the time before time, the animal people were similar to human people. This is a story of the Battle of the Birds.
To be honest, when I first was conceiving this idea, it was I was really interested in exploring wax cylinder recordings of songs and stories and in our language, the Iqaluit language. But it was also an excuse to find a way to do what I do in the city and to bring it home and to do it in the place where I grew up with the people that I grew up with. We had a week-long symposium here at the hall in 2013. What we've done is, rather than take directly from the wax cylinder recordings and try to reproduce what was laid down 100 years ago, we were inspired. So we would take melodies or riffs or rhythms and incorporate that and create new songs. And the most wonderful part of it is we have these little babies, we have these children singing these songs that we've created together as a community. And now they, the first year we did it, in the same year that Frozen came out. So instead of singing the Frozen songs, the kids are running around singing the Battle of the Burn songs. For me, that's a victory right there.
What right do they have to tell me what to do or say?
I think all of these spectacular stories have amazing lessons and things that they offer, insights. With Battle of the Birds, it's about domestic violence. But not just domestic violence with anybody, it's a leader in the community.
That ends now.
The scope and scale of these stories is actually very similar to Greek mythology. They involve these epic struggles, but also very human realities are embedded within each of the stories.
think we in the Indigenous theatre community have always felt sort of like we needed a place at the National Arts Centre, at the nation's arts centre. I think the institution realized that it was well past time to start something like this, and so it's a big deal. It's a huge opportunity for Indigenous artists across the country, and we will present in our first season international Indigenous artists. This is the beginning. Today is the beginning of my actual vacation for the next week. Oh well, that's our cue.
That's our cue.
Yeah. Okay. Vacation begins now.
Coming up.
This art form is a modern art form from Greenland based on what has happened in pre-Christian times. It's a political act, it's a cultural act, it's an idiosyncratic art form.
The following program may contain scenes with nudity. Viewer discretion is advised.
My name's Iqaluit. I'm an artist based here in Iqaluit. I've lived in Iqaluit for almost 13 years. I'm a Galalak, I'm a Greenlander, as well as a Nunavut person from here, from Nunavut. And I'm living here with my 3 children and my husband. Most of what I do, whether it's writing to creating collaborative performances, it's rooted in Unnatural, which is Greenlandic mass dancing. And this art form is a modern art form from Greenland based on what has happened in pre-Christian times. It's a political act, it's a cultural act, it's an idiosyncratic art form. We're Indigenous people, and the word Indigenous means coming from the land. You know, we're not even half a drop in the immensity. We don't even know where the edges of the universe are. So how dare we be anything but humble about our humanity? Jamie Griffiths and I, who's running the camera right now, worked together to create a film. A film that very slowly crawled over the tundra and examines the very small life that we have on our rocks and on our land. And the way that I kind of conceptualize this very slow exploration of land and ice is almost like one of those huge, grand, gilt picture frames that you see in all these dramatic, you know, romantic paintings. The slow roll over my naked body is a challenge. Just like Unnatural is challenging people to accept each other and accept oneself, I'm challenging people to look at my breasts that have been breastfeeding for almost 9 years, my belly that's been stretched by pregnancy 3 times, all the marks on my body of being a proud Inuk woman. Women face, above all other stereotypes, the stereotype of being a sexual object, of being the pokahati, of allowing anybody to take advantage of Indigenous women. And here we are in the face of missing and murdered Indigenous women and children, and having a process to understand what is actually going on in our society. Of course we face tremendous, crushing sexual violence because of these stereotypes. And for me, nudity is a natural thing. And it's a beautiful thing in all its different shapes and forms and textures. And it's wonderful to be naked. But it's also a peeling back of all of those stereotypes. Like, why have you placed this projection over us as Indigenous women? I'm going to pull all of those projections off so you can see exactly who I am, right down to my flesh. I'm me.
If you ever get a chance to see Iqaluit perform, I guarantee that you won't forget it. She uses Greenlandic mask dancing to explore Inuit philosophies in performance art, theater, writing, and curation. Coming up, we hear from the man who let this country know that we are in the midst of an Indigenous renaissance. Jeremy Dutcher is a performer, a composer, an activist, and a musicologist who has taken the Canadian music world by storm. Winning the Polaris Music Prize in 2018 and several Junos earlier this year, Jeremy's music combines the traditional songs of his home with classical influences and contemporary chords of resistance. Jeremy is performing at the launch of the NAC Indigenous Theatre, but first, let's meet him on a different stage.
Thank you. First time I went back home in New Brunswick to play this music for my community, there was an elder who came from the back of the room at the end of the show. And she says, "Hey, boy, that lullaby you played, I know that one. My grandmother used to sing that to me every night before I went to bed. And I haven't heard that since she passed. So when you sang that, you brought her back to me. So thank you, Beliwin." And music brings people back, you know, and it brings us together. So this is called Old Testag, and it's a lullaby. The narrative for a very long time that Indigenous people are of the past and are fading is in direct opposition to what's actually happening. We're actually seeing in our lifetime a resurgence of cultures that were pushed to the brink. Indigenous future means that nothing ever died and nothing was broken. All of those things that we could have been, we live into it by singing ahead of it, throwing those songs a little further ahead than we are currently, and dreaming ourselves into the future. So that most we know what Iqaluit.
You can catch the rest of that profile of Jeremy Dutcher on Season 2 of In the Making on CBC Gem. I want to congratulate all of the many people involved in the NAC's Indigenous Theatre. Thank you for letting us be part of this historic moment. If there's an artist you think should be on CBC Arts Exhibitionists, send me a message on social media. Our handle is @CBC Arts. Before I go, I want to leave you with some words of wisdom from the legendary musician Buffy Sainte-Marie. If you're second-guessing your own creativity, you may want to pay attention to what Buffy has to say. Tune in next week for another deep dive into the transformative world of Canadian art. Peace.
I'm an artist, and I think a lot of people are artists and don't even know that they are. So many of us get talked out of our natural talents when we go to school. As for me, I started playing music just by playing with the piano. I was playing music. When everybody else was playing Barbie dolls and sports, I was playing art. So if you're an artist, keep that in mind. Nobody knows you're an artist until you've done it. Believe in yourself. You're the one who knows the pictures are coming into your mind, the stories that go through your head, and the music that you hear inside. Develop it. Play it for other people when you're ready. Give it to us. We all need it.